Hey there, everybody. Thanks for joining me for another one-man review. Today I'll be looking at issue number 5 from the complete 8-ball, issues 1 through 18 by Daniel Clowes. This is a newly released version of this, a paperback version that just came out from Fantagraphics, and I've been going through because it collects the original 18 issues of 8-ball in facsimile editions, including the letters and stuff. And I never read those when they came out. These were little bit early for me. It coming out in the late 80s, early 90s. I would have just been turning like 8 or 9 when this first started coming out, so it's a little early for me, and I've never read them all the way through. I've seen some of these things like Ghost World and Like a Velvet Glove, Cast in Iron. I've read those separately as their own things, but it's cool to see this all collected in its original format because there's a lot I've missed out on, and there's something about the jumping between a lot of different styles I'm enjoying it. It's interesting. I enjoy when other people do it. I don't think Clowes is as good as developing this kaleidoscope view as like Tim Lane or Tommy Masturi or some of the other people that the person who does the mangaka who does PTSD Radio. But I think you get a picture of the artist in this one more than like a theme that there's a kaleidoscope view. So I like this view of like an artist developing a bunch of stuff simultaneously and keeping themselves entertained that way. That's interesting to me. I would enjoy working that way as well, I think. So I see someone having a lot of fun in these stories. So going through one at a time, here you get what is a standard featured so far in 8-ball, which are these collaborative pieces with David Greenberger, who's supposedly doing the dialogue. To me, it looks like they're going out and asking people this question and recording their actual answers. But if these are fake answers, if these are made up answers, then I really enjoy David Greenberger's writing if that's the case. Then some color here within the issue, which is kind of cool. That's nice to see. But then we immediately jump back to black and white. This is a continuation of Like a Velvet Glove, Cast in Iron. It's so far in the first 5 issues the most steady feature. It's kind of like a David Lynch surreal, just rambling story. I've compared it a couple times to what Gilbert Hernandez does when he does his more seemingly just like panel by panel, make it up as I go surrealist stories. And then there's a bit also of, I would say, Charles Burns in there. And in this one, I started seeing influence going the other way. Looking at this, I realized, oh man, like Jim Rugg must really have taken a lot of influences from these early issues of 8-ball, and this look that Dan Clowes has, this looks like a lot of how Jim Rugg draws faces and how he handles clothing and stuff like that. So it's like, oh, okay, that's where some of those ticks that I notice in Jim's art come from. So that's fun. I really enjoyed, he's flipping through some magazine or something here, and they have a hippie pacifier, which is like a little tiny penis on a pacifier. So I thought that was just kind of a funny joke. Like, Dan Clowes is always kind of taking shots at everyone, and in past reviews I've complained about that a little bit. That seems to be all he's doing, but that one was funny. Here you see some of that weird like Twin Peaks David Lynch type of surrealism with just these strange characters. Everyone in the town's got like mutated heads, and there's always like strange lighting and creepy people. But I don't know what this story's like adding up to in the end. It just does really seem like this stream of consciousness, make it up as I go, which is really fun to do. Like, that's what I was saying. I can see Dan Clowes having fun doing this. But as a reader, it's like, okay, whatever. Another thing that looks really fun, like Dan Clowes is just doing whatever he wants and enjoying himself, is here in the letter column, instead of responding to people in writing, I mean, he does put some stuff in here, like talking about, oh, I got a letter from Mary Fleener. If you don't know who she is, let me tell you. But really, he goes in and responds with cartoons, which I think is fun. They respond to what's in the text, and it gives him more of a chance to like show off his one-shot cartooning chops, which is fun. Then there's Daniel G. Clowes in Just Another Day. So this is supposedly like the diary comic format, just someone living his boring, stupid life. But then there's like these fun meta insertions where it's like, no, cut, scene, I'm the real Dan Clowes. And this is the type of thing that normally I would really gripe about, these like, I don't have any story ideas, or I don't know, they two down their own belly button. But Clowes does a really fun trick in this where he's then also throwing the unreliable narrator in there. So it's like here he's sniffing his own sock, and the other thing is it gets so meta. He's like explaining the genre to you. He's right, you know, this is like, I know it's boring, but it exposes deep truths by showing, hey, you know, you sniff your sock too. And I think he's correct. Like, if you're going to do this type of story, the more embarrassing and open it is, the more interesting it gets, the more it's going to land. But he sets the reader up like, okay, you do this too, right? Admit it. And he's like, I don't actually do that. I just lying to trick you into it, sucker. So he has this unreliable narrator thing and this interaction, more engagement with the audience, where it's a bit like a stand-up routine. And I think that's fun. You know, if you're going to do this kind of thing, like Clowes is doing it at peak level, which is everything that I dislike about his stuff. He's still doing it at the utmost, you know. And so I have to respect it for that. And of course, the art and the technique and the care and the craft is always there. But then he goes through and it's like, well, that wasn't the real Dan Clowes. This is the real Clowes. This is the real Clowes. So he's, you know, he's playing with that format. It's really turns out to not be autobiography, but it's a comment on the reliability of narrator. And then basically devolves into like, how can you trust anything? Which is all kind of, actually, I think that's here. He devolves into that, but he's setting that up too. So that's that kind of kaleidoscope where he can kind of put a thought here and then set up a joke later. I don't know how intentional that is, but it works real well. Then this is really cool. Playful Obsession, going with like the old Casper the Ghost style look. Obviously, there's hand coloring in here. Like, this is all painted. You can see that. That's really nice. So probably using the blue line coloring. And then this is just a tirade about wealth disparity, and then also like, you know, just how capitalism works. They sell people their obsessions, but it's funny. It's subversive. There's an artist. I'm gonna blank on his name right now, but who's doing? It's a book called Dwellings that looks like it grew out of this, probably like a more adult take on this old style stuff. I'm looking forward to getting those. I ordered those, but I don't think issue number 4 is done yet. So I like that feature. That one's kind of cool. I like Clowes a lot when he works in color. And here's another color feature that was on the back cover, obviously, called Paranoid. And then he kind of plays off the joke that he sets up here, where it's a very, again, you know, this is very much of its time too, which is very fun to see. It is very Gen X, early 90s, anti kind of globalized corporate culture, and then just kind of questioning everything and irony all over the place, ironic questioning. So that's a fun time capsule. I think that hopefully we've grown beyond that attitude in society. I don't know that we grew into something better, but here's again this like real just mistrust of everything, and in this one, Paranoid. You know, how can you be sure that anything that you've read's true? How can you be sure that we landed on the moon? Why are you smiling at me? And then, like with that typical irony of that time, then he reverses it, and it's like, you know, now it's not. It's both about being paranoid about these things and putting out the idea that how can you trust them, but then also at the same time wrapping back around and saying like, you know, don't be that guy, don't be that paranoid guy. So it's always a real mixed message too with Clowes. I think he understands his proclivities and understands that they're bad, that they're bad proclivities. But then indulges that in them anyways, and that's where the irony comes in, and that's where it gets annoying too. It's like, okay, dude, if you think these are bad ideas, just stop doing it and do something that you're also not going to want to undermine. But I think that's just part of the time, is that everything should be undermined. Everything is underminable. And then preview of issue 6 here. I'm feeling some real Gilbert Hernandez vibes with these two illustrations as well. So I do think that had to have been a major influence. And I'm going to start going back to those now that the Complete Love First 50 Love and Rockets is out. So I get to go back and read some of those as well. So I'm enjoying this read through. I enjoyed issue 6 a lot more. I think Clowes is growing up and becoming a little more sophisticated. The stuff where he goes into these kind of obnoxious tropes he's at least like really pushing them and poking at the trope in what he's doing. So I like that quite a bit. If you don't have the original 8-Ball run, highly recommended. Get it while it's there. If you enjoy what we're doing here on the channel, then the best way to support us are through our Patreon. We have a couple different tiers there that have different voting privileges and different contests you can win, stuff like that. That money always helps us buy the books that we review. And then the best thing that you can do to support Living the Line is support what Sean's doing with the publishing aspect of it. So we'll go ahead and take a look at some books that he has put out or has coming out. Centralia is an awesome, gorgeous comic by rising Dutch star Miel van de Peet. This is his first work. It's a really great sci-fi story. There's a world in the future where the sun has gotten so hot that people can't be on the ground, so they have to run around. There's a lot of conceits that go with that. You know, what is the world that looks like? And I think you can see by the art that Sean's description of this book as like a Moebius for young adults, a YA Moebius, is a really great description of this really gorgeous and like wild, wacky, fun book. Plaza by Yokoyama Yuichi. This is translated by Ryan Holmberg and is very large for a manga, so that's a really cool feature of this book, this standard manga size. And this is just a 200 some odd page representation of what Yokoyama Yuichi thinks of the Carnival parade, and he's just made this like relentlessly loud and rhythmic book that pushes all kinds of amazing boundaries of what comics and manga are, and we could not recommend this book more. Thanks for following along. Take it away, Jack.
You want to see all these books? Smash that subscribe button and the like button and the bell, and then you get them.